My name is Dr. Michael Brown, and this is 3 Words, a bite-sized podcast about the simple and strategic choices that all of us can make in order to be fully alive. In my conversation today with my dear friend, Dr. Tyler Schwanz, we are talking about cheering, not for ourselves, but for others, affirming, encouraging. What does it look like to be people who are willing to look outside of ourselves and cheer for other human beings? It's practical. It's inspiring. The stories that Tyler shares are really, really interesting and intriguing to enter into his story and to together think about how we can cheer for others. Enjoy. My kids always make fun of me, Tyler, because I'll sometimes take my baseball cap and flip it around and wear it backwards, and they're like, you're too old for that. But you totally can pull it off this morning. So, Tyler, it's so good to be with you here and to have another fantastic conversation. Would you share our 3 words for today?
Yes, they are cheer for others.
Cheer for others. And, as I thought about these 3 words, I thought this is the perfect conversation to have with my dear friend, Dr. Tyler Schwanz, because I have never in my entire friendship with you heard you self-promote. I have never been in your presence where you're talking about me, cheer for me, I'm amazing. But I have seen you on so many occasions cheering for others, affirming others, encouraging others, supporting others. And so I'm so glad that we get to sit here today and have this conversation, because in an era of incredible self-promotion, the ability to actually cheer for others is so, so unique. Why is this topic so important to you personally?
Yeah, well, that's really nice of you to say. For some reason, I feel like cheering for others is where I feel best. I do feel best being like there for people and letting them know, like, yeah, what you're doing is incredible. It's amazing. Like, you don't have to feel self-conscious. Like, you're doing great. And I think that goes back to when I was in high school, I was a soccer player. I did musical theater. And in their own ways.
So wait, you were both a athlete and a theater kid?
I'm the total package. What can I say? No. So I played soccer. And when you played soccer, like, you're out there in the field, it's like 90 minutes. And there are people that you expect to cheer for you. And basically, it's like my mom and my dad. And they were there in the stands cheering for me. And I could hear my mom yelling and my dad yelling at the ref. And like, that was all just normal stuff that I expected. But it meant a lot to me. Now, the weird thing that meant a lot to me as well are the people that cheered for me that I didn't necessarily consider a given. And one I can remember fondly. I don't even remember her name. I only knew her as Mrs., whatever. And, but she must have been, just like a lifelong smoker. And I say that in the terms where when I could hear her across the field and she'd be like, go Tyler, go Tyler, go. And I loved that. I loved it. It gave me superpowers. Like, I would just all of a sudden just like start doing all these moves that I didn't even know that I had, you know? And the lesson that I guess that taught me is that it's not just the people that are going to show up. It's also the people that are totally out of left field that show up for you. And this is not just like cheering you on when things are great, but it's also when things are crumbling down on you in your life. Yeah, there's your core people who are going to show up and they're going to be there for you, and you expect them to be there for you, and you're thankful for that. But then there's like the 1 or 2, 3 random people that you haven't talked to, but maybe just heard what you're going through and decided to send a meal or send a card or give a call, and you haven't talked to them in years. For some reason, like for me anyway, like those people like cheering you through those hard times means a lot as well.
Well, and even on the soccer field, you must be very secure as a human being to actually shout as loud as you can through your grovelly smoker voice, right?
Yeah.
To shout for someone who is not your child. I mean, there's a tremendous security there. And I was thinking about this even as we were preparing for this conversation. Why don't we cheer for others? I think one of them is insecurity. Because if I'm insecure and I feel like a leaky bucket, if I can use that term, if I feel like I don't have enough or I'm not enough, why would I give value? Why would I affirm and encourage someone else? And so I love that story on the soccer field, because obviously there's a tremendous security she had to be able to cheer for you. And I'm sure people were looking at her like, man, she's over the top. Why wouldn't we be over the top if the product is to affirm, encourage, and inspire someone else.
That's
like,
perfect.
wouldn't that be a great reputation?
Yeah.
This person is over the top in cheering for other people and not self-promoting.
It's like if you have more than enough, of course you're going to give more than enough to everybody else. And I feel like at its core, you said it perfectly. Like being secure in yourself, like that's how standing ovations happen. Because like at the end of I was in musical theater, and like at the end of a show, like it takes the first person to stand up. Like you're like, I really want to tell these people that they did a good job, but I don't want to be the first person to stand up. Well, why? Are you insecure? Just stand it up. So that's how standing ovations happen, is somebody who's really secure and more moved by telling them that they did a great job more so than their own insecurities. Like that's how that happens. And it's such a beautiful thing when it does, because, when you're out there, when you're on the stage and you're looking out and you just see black because you can't see everybody out in the house, you just see darkness out there. You don't know if what you're doing is landing. I can think of another particular parent when I was in high school, not my own, but another particular parent who just had the loudest laughter. Like just pure joy. But like I would do the silliest slapstick joke on stage and I could just hear from the far back, and I knew exactly who it was and where she was sitting.
Love it.
And I was like, wow, what I'm doing, I don't even have to wait till the standing ovation. I know that I can keep putting myself out there and being vulnerable because someone else is, sharing their joy with me and doing so from the darkness, even when I don't know necessarily where they are or who they're, who it's coming from. I did, but it's just such an amazing thing. And I think that's probably why I like to cheer people on, is because a lot of people have cheered me on for my entire life.
And you're speaking about performing in the darkness. And I don't mean to make this, overly spiritual or overly think too deeply about this, but as I think about this idea that so many of us feel like we are wandering around in the dark and we're wondering, are we doing okay? Am I okay? What do people think of me? Yeah. And to have folks speak into that darkness and say, no, you're okay.
Yeah.
You're enough and you're doing awesome, and keep fighting and keep trying. And even earlier in our conversation, and I didn't mean to pivot too quickly, but you were talking about even in those challenging times, those sad times, those times of struggle where people actually step into that and say, I see you.
Yeah. And
it's okay. And you're doing great. And you're persevering and you're being persistent, and I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
That is a different way to cheer for others, but it's so powerful because I think we're all kind of wandering around at times feeling like we're in the darkness and like, what do people think? And am I doing okay? And am I on the right path? And so this conversation is even bigger than just cheer for others on the sidelines of a soccer game.
Yeah.
We all desperately crave people around us saying, you got this.
Yeah. And I feel like when you need to be told you got this the most is when there's no end in sight. When you can't see the ending, when you are tired, when you feel like the energy that you have is waning, like that's when you need to be cheered on the most. I feel like in general, like there's a lot of metaphors that could be made for life, and a marathon is definitely one of them. And have you ever run a marathon?
I have not. The most I've ever run is a 5K.
Okay, that's
and
all
I did not do very well.
Well, it's a different animal. Running 5Ks, they're fast.
Yeah.
So it's a different animal.
Have you run a marathon?
I've run one marathon.
Okay.
And I've since vowed never to run one again. I did not do well in my marathon.
Now, you're so adventurous too, so I'm curious. It must have been pretty traumatic.
Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. I run half marathons, but that is the longest that I can run. As it turns out, like 13.1, that's perfect for me. 26.2, that is just madness. But the reason that I bring it up at all is there's one particular race that I like to do every year. It's up in Traverse City, Michigan. It's called the Bayshore Half Marathon. And the way that the course is set up is the half marathoners get bussed out. So we get bussed out 13.1 miles, and we start there, and then we run back to the start. The marathoners, they start at the start, and they run 13.1 miles out, and then they run 13.1 miles back. That's how that works. And so basically the marathoners start just a little bit earlier in the half. We start maybe about a half hour after them. So as you're running, we're running toward the finish. They're running out and back. We eventually pass each other.
Yeah.
One of the most striking things that I recall from doing this race is that it's always the marathoners who are like cheering on the half marathoners.
Okay.
Because they're
I see
the pros,
this.
right? They're amazing. Like,
Yeah.
I said, I've done one marathon and it's not fun. It's not easy at all. And I could never do it again. But it's so incredible is that they're going through their own journey. They could be absolutely focused on what they got going on and say like, I don't have time. I don't have the energy to focus on them. I have much more on my plate than they do. I'm working way harder than they are. I'm going way faster. I'm going in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
But no, they don't let any of those things stop them from like clapping and cheering us on. And I'm like, I've only run 3 miles at this point in time.
And they've run 18.
They run like 16 or 18.
Yeah.
And I'm like huffing and puffing. And then they're cheering us on. I'm like, man, like, what a cool example that is. And then, of course, when they make the turn, and many of them are passing me amazingly. So they're like passing me. They're going to run a marathon faster than I can run a half. And they're going to finish. And like at that point in time, it's up to us, the half marathoners, when they are just dog tired, to like cheer them on, to pay it forward, to like return the favor, if as it were, to like cheer them on and let them know like, hey, like, we're here with you. Now we're going in the same direction. Now we have a common goal. We're doing the same thing. Like, you got this.
The lesson there, Tyler, I can't help but bring it to light, is this notion that even when we're most tired and we feel like we have nothing left, if we exert a little bit of energy to cheer someone else on, it actually gives us fuel for the rest of the race. Because the tendency would be, as I'm tired and as I'm weary and as I'm pushing, mile 18, 19, 20, the focus could be self-consumed.
Right.
We could say, I'm looking at myself. I've just got to think about myself. I need to get to the end. But the more we look outside of ourselves, and you model this in your life in so many ways, but the more you look outside of yourself, even in the midst of exhaustion and weariness and tiredness and even emotional frailty, we tend to find life by giving ourselves away.
Yeah.
When we are more interested in others, as we often say, than being interesting to others, when we are looking beyond ourselves, which we talked about in another podcast episode, we tend to actually find life. We tend to think there's a scarcity mindset. We only have so much to give away. And there's only so much that we can have. So I got to keep it all for myself. But you're talking about cheering for others. I'm just going to keep giving it away. Give away, give away, give away. And then at the end of that day, at the end of the race, you have more energy than you could have imagined.
That's
what
true.
a great lesson. The great story. Tell me more. What else do you think?
Yeah,
about?
I mean,
cheer for others.
Don't get me wrong too. Like, it's not just the marathoners cheering. Like, if you ever have run a race, when you run, the signs that people hold up, especially the ones that say like, don't poop, like free beer, those are also helpful. It's not just, that stuff, but the humor is great. Another time when I can think of cheering for others, probably one of the most beautiful times that someone has cheered for me. I never knew who they were. I never met them. But this is how I knew that they were cheering for me is, right after college, me and several friends, we hiked a section of the Appalachian Trail. And it was actually a section that started right around Pennsylvania. Some of our group got all the way to, New Hampshire. But we went through Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Vermont. And as you're going through there, like, you are wet. You have gotten rained on. You have blisters. You're carrying a heavy pack. You are malnourished. You are tired. You haven't slept well. It's just like weeks and weeks of this going on and on and on. And there's this thing that happens on the trail called trail magic. And it sounds weird until I explain it, but the trail crosses over streets, and people live on these streets. And as the trail crosses over the streets, there are sometimes coolers that people would place there. And that's called trail magic. You open up the cooler, and it's in there is all of a sudden like just a ton of Lunchables, or like fresh oranges, or water, or a 6-pack of beer, or whatever it might be. Like, believe me, like, all of those things mean their own thing in their own way. But when you're on the trail and you haven't slept inside or had a shower or anything like that in weeks and weeks and weeks, and you are just feeling weary, this trail magic, which is just the kindness of others, basically, who live nearby, know that there's going to be travel weary, hikers that are going to be coming by. They're just dropping stuff off, saying like,
love it.
You got this. I'm never going to meet you. I'm never going to run into you. I'm never going to see you, but let you know, like, you got this. We're here for you. We support you, and you just keep on going on your journey, and we're just here to support you. Like, They're called trail angels, is what we call them on the trail. And that's called trail magic. And it's just a cool way of blessing others.
Well, and I love this idea of cheering for others, expecting nothing in return.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what you just described. I mean, they're cheering for others, they're affirming others, they're blessing others with no agenda except for to be a blessing to others, as opposed to what am I going to get back for this? Or who's going to say, oh, you're such a great, person and you did this and that. Is that to truly cheer for others is to throw that out there without expecting anything in return.
Right.
I was thinking about this too, Tyler, particularly in this day when it's pretty contentious out there. Our culture, there's a lot of contention. There's a lot of criticism. There's a lot of frustration. I like this idea as well of cheering for your critics. Those that maybe you disagree with or those who have been hard on you, to continue to think, not just cheer for those that I love and I care about, but what does it look like to really cheer for those who maybe have been hard on you, who have maybe even attacked you. And I think, again, it takes it to that next level. We tend to cheer for people who we think like us or we like, but even to be able to say, no, I want to cheer for you, even though we're different, even though we disagree, even though maybe you've said some things that have been hurtful or harmful. I just think this entire idea of giving ourselves away, lifting the morale of our communities, but also of our country. If everyone was cheering for others, looking for the best in others, supporting, encouraging, all the stuff we're talking about, it could be a fantastic, fantastic major step forward. Tyler, I mean, obviously you embody this. Not only do you express it here on our podcast episode, but you embody this in your life. And I have been a beneficiary on several occasions where you have cheered for me, and I want to thank you for that. I do want to say to our listeners and viewers today, though, if you are here with us, thank you for joining the conversation. But I want to encourage you, both Tyler and I want to actually exhort you to think beyond yourself, to not have the scarcity mindset, to not be insecure, but actually say, you know what? I'm going to actually step out and cheer for other people. We want to encourage you today. There are probably folks in your life, friends, people around you that probably could use some encouragement right now. Today is not about you. Today is about them. What if every one of us identified just today, as you're listening to this podcast episode, one or two individuals that you can come alongside of and say, you got this. You're doing fantastic. You're going to make it. Keep fighting. Keep fighting through the struggle you're dealing with. We would encourage you to do that because, again, 3 words that could literally transform your life and the lives of others. Cheer for others. For life coaching, consulting services, or to hire a keynote speaker, please visit dmbcoaching.com.